Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're taking on a massive, really exciting challenge. Think about it. Traditionally, if you wanted to shoot a visceral, heart-pounding monster fight, you needed a small army. You needed stunt doubles, massive camera cranes, closed-down city streets, and oh yeah, a multi-million-dollar Hollywood budget. But today, the tools we have at our disposal are literally game-changing. The barrier to entry has essentially vanished. You can now build these epic sequences sitting right at your desk with nothing but a laptop and your imagination. But of course, a huge question remains. How exactly do you take all these separate digital tools and weave them together into a genuine Hollywood-level action sequence? Well, today, we're going to dissect the anatomy of an AI action scene and break down exactly how you can command these modern tools to do just that.
We've all seen them, right? Those flat, totally lifeless AI-generated videos floating around online. They look less like an intense movie sequence and more like moving wallpaper. They lack punch, they lack reality. But why do they feel that way? Honestly, it's usually because they ignore the basic laws of physics, they lack grounded, realistic sound, and they completely lack intentional storytelling. So how do you take a simple text prompt and avoid that exact trap? How do you turn it into a dynamic monster action sequence from your very own bedroom? The secret is that you don't just generate a video and call it a day. You have to meticulously construct a scene layer by layer.
Okay, let's dive right into this masterclass blueprint. We're going to build our scene in 4 distinct phases: directing the AI camera, editing for visceral impact, creating Foley at home, and finally, driving action with music.
Starting with Phase 1, directing the AI camera, generating the raw material.
So this is where we lay the foundation, because frankly, the difference between a stunning AI video and a messy one is almost always the prompt. We are just casually typing words here. We're stepping into the director's chair to orchestrate a very specific locked-face monster attack. To do this, we use a foolproof 4-part AI prompt formula. Look, vague prompts give you incredibly generic results. If you just type "make a cool monster video," the AI has no idea what to prioritize. Instead, you need to structure your commands. First, declare your precise subject and action. Second, dictate the camera movement. Is it a sweeping tracking shot, a slow dolly in, or maybe a frantic handheld pan? Third, establish the lighting and mood. This one is absolutely crucial because if you ignore lighting, the AI usually defaults to a really flat, muddy, midday sun look. You have to explicitly ask for that cinematic contrast. And fourth, lock in the style, like cinematic, anamorphic, or documentary. This structured formula guarantees you get highly controlled, specific visual results.
Let's actually apply this formula. Consider a prompt like, "I am casually walking down a deserted road. A huge, terrifying monster suddenly emerges. I remain completely calm. Just before it reaches me, I deliver one incredibly powerful kick to its chest. The monster flies several meters backward. Realistic physics, cinematic impact." By stating specific actions, like contrasting your utterly calm demeanor against the explosive power of the kick, and explicitly demanding realistic physics, you are actively directing the AI's engine. You're giving it a very rigid set of boundaries to work within, rather than just throwing words at a wall and, crossing your fingers.
But which AI model should you actually sit in the director's chair for? Well, while that prompt formula works universally across the board, different AI models have incredibly distinct personalities and strengths. Sora by OpenAI is an absolute powerhouse for handling complex cinematic scenes and realistic physics, which makes it perfectly suited for a heavy monster flying backward and crashing into a car. On the flip side, Kling excels at incredibly smooth, fluid human movement. So if you want the intricate mechanics of your martial arts kick to look flawless, without any weird, glitchy artifacting on the limbs, Kling might just be your secret weapon for that specific shot.
Moving right along to Phase 2, editing for visceral impact, shaping the clay.
All right, so we've generated our raw kinetic footage. Now we head into the editing suite. An editor is uniquely positioned to elevate a good sequence into a great one. We need to take our raw AI clay and sculpt it to create real emotional and kinetic energy. And by following these 5 crucial editing tips, we can really build that tension. First, cut to the actors' faces. Seeing our protagonist completely calm before a monster attacks establishes the human stakes and really grounds the scene. Second, cut on movement to add pure forward momentum. Third, establish geography. If the audience doesn't know where the monster is standing relative to the hero, the action feels confusing, right? It's just disorienting. Fourth, serve the narrative mini-arc to ensure the story is progressing. And fifth, allow for full actions to actually play out in a shot so the audience has the time to mentally process the awesome stunt you just generated.
I want to zero in on that fourth point for a second with a brilliant quote from Frame.io Insider. Every cut should serve the narrative mini-arc of an action sequence. Think about it. Our monster kick scene is not just random, mindless violence. It's a very deliberate mini-story. It has a definite beginning. The monster suddenly emerges and threatens our hero. It has a tense middle, the calm, calculated reaction followed by the powerful kick. And it has a satisfying end, the monster crashing away into the distance. Every single cut you make, every frame you trim, absolutely must progress that specific story arc forward.
And to make that narrative arc actually hit the audience, you have to master cutting on movement. Action shouldn't just be seen, it should be felt in the chest. If you cut exactly when that powerful kick connects with the monster's chest, you transfer that physical momentum straight into the next shot. Following movement with movement creates an incredibly visceral, rhythmic tempo. It bridges the gap between two completely separate AI generations and sews them together flawlessly. Ultimately, it turns your action sequence from a passive visual experience into an active, heart-pounding feeling.
Which brings us to Phase 3, creating Foley at home, the illusion of reality. So, at this point, we have a beautifully edited, kinetic visual sequence. But if you watch an AI video right at this stage, it often feels strangely flat. It feels like the whole scene is happening behind thick, soundproof glass. And why is that? Because it lacks a completely crucial layer of acoustic reality. Foley. Foley is the incredibly detailed craft of performing everyday sounds, like footsteps, cloth movement, props, in perfect sync with the picture. The discipline is actually named after a guy named Jack Donovan Foley. When Hollywood abruptly transitioned from silent films to talkies back in the late 1920s, they desperately needed sound effects. Jack Foley figured out how to project the film in a studio and record live sound effects simultaneously using really basic props. And today, it remains the secret acoustic layer that provides the lovely paradox of using something totally fake to make your fake AI visuals feel tangibly, wonderfully real.
Now, what's really interesting here is the true art of Foley, substitution. You do not need a multi-million-dollar soundstage to pull this off. In fact, you can build a highly effective Foley prop kit directly from your kitchen pantry. When you think about it, there's something wonderfully absurd about bringing a stalk of celery to a monster fight, but it works. Need the visceral sound of the monster's bones breaking from your kick? Snap fresh celery right up close to the microphone. The deep, heavy thud of a body punch? Strike a heavy phone book. The eerie, crunching sound of footsteps creeping through the snow? Just squeeze a pillowcase filled with cornstarch. Foley is entirely about recording what a sound should feel like to the human ear, not what it actually is in reality.
To capture this magic, working Foley artists use a very specific 5-step home recording workflow. First, you spot the scene, going through frame by frame to identify every single sound needed, from a jacket rustling to a heavy footfall. Second, choose your perspective. Extreme close-ups need intense, isolated detail, while wide shots need a bit more acoustic restraint in a room sound. Third, set up your microphone and rehearse the physical action. Fourth, and this is critical, perform to picture. You must loop the video and physically perform to it. Yes, this literally means you might be standing in your bedroom aggressively swinging a pillowcase full of cornstarch or violently destroying a head of lettuce while staring at your laptop screen. I know it sounds completely absurd, but it perfectly matches the timing and intensity on screen. Finally, step 5, you edit and sync the audio perfectly to the visual hit so the illusion is totally seamless. But hey, you don't have to record absolutely everything by hand. Professional editors use a really clever 80-20 split. DIY Foley is absolutely essential for sync-critical sounds, like the crisp, specific impact of your martial arts kick on the monster or the subtle rustle of your jacket as you prepare to strike. Those sounds need a human touch. But for the massive, dangerous sound of the monster crashing into an empty vehicle, unless you happen to have a spare car to blow up in your backyard, well, that's where you rely on high-quality sound effect libraries. Layering your bespoke, handmade Foley right over top of massive library sound effects is exactly how you achieve a rich, booming cinematic audio mix.
Let's move to our final layer, Phase 4, driving action with music, the heartbeat.
All right, we've got stunning AI visuals, kinetic editing, and a grounded reality through Foley and library sound effects. Now we transition to the final emotional layer, scoring the scene to drive the chaos and suspense. When you look at the traits of action background music, it has a very specific, almost psychological job. It is highly rhythmic and percussive. A fast tempo doesn't just sound cool, it physically affects the viewer. A heavy, percussive beat mimics an elevated heart rate, tapping directly into human biology to make the audience feel the exact same adrenaline as the character on screen. Its primary purpose is to drive the fight, making the viewer actually feel the chaos.
When you lay an upbeat track beneath your sequence, it acts as a literal heartbeat that instantly elevates the sheer suspense of the monster's attack and the ultimate triumph of your counterstrike.
So when you step back and look at it, the master blueprint becomes incredibly clear. The crucial point is, you simply cannot rely on one single tool to do all the heavy lifting. Tricking the human brain into believing a digital scene is real requires a true symphony of techniques. You start with specific, intensely directed AI generation. You refine that raw clay with precise kinetic editing. You ground the physics in reality using DIY Foley, and you inject it all with pure adrenaline using a percussive score. Combining these disparate, carefully crafted layers is exactly what elevates a simple bedroom experiment into a rich, immersive Hollywood-style action sequence.
By mastering these layers, you essentially have a major movie studio sitting right on your desk. Think about that for a second. You have the knowledge, you have the structural blueprint, and thanks to modern technology, you have the tools. Which leaves us with one final, thrilling question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. What kind of monster are you going to create today? The canvas is wide open. Get out there, start experimenting, and I will see you in the next explainer.